Andre today. For today, we're going to be wrapping up the John Wayne Gacy tapes. Then after this, we'll be getting into the last 2 episodes of the Peacock of John Wayne Gacy, and then we're going to move on to the Ted Bundy tapes. And then we do have a long list of other things that we're going to be getting into. Just so you guys know, I believe on November 17th or 18th, there should be another documentary coming out. I won't be putting that on the channel as yet. If we will do it, it depends if you guys would like to get into that documentary. It deals with the military lady that was killed, I believe it was in Texas, by her boyfriend, and that happened maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. Or it should be like 3 or 4 years ago, I believe. Was it Texas? I feel like it was in Texas. So we could be getting into that if you guys are interested in it. I'm not sure if you guys know, I don't remember the lady's name. She was young though, and I don't remember her name, but if you guys, when it drops on Netflix, if you guys are interested in it, definitely let me know. And when we wrap up, because Ted Bundy, y'all been asking for a while, we will be getting into that. I think if it's like this tapes, it's only 3 episodes, so once we're done with that, maybe we'll get into that, or maybe we'll get into some the other tapes that I believe that Netflix does have out. Guys, I did mention as well in a post that they will be doing another monster type, like how they did for Jeffrey Dahmer, but I'm assuming it's obviously not going to be Jeffrey Dahmer season 2. What I was trying to say is that there's going to be a season 2 of the monster, and then maybe, I'm assuming, another serial killer. It would only make sense to me that they would be jumping into John Wayne Gacy, because he was actually he was in the show for a very brief second, and it made me really interested in learning it like that way, other than just listening to these tapes and the Peacock version. But who knows what they're going to do. Maybe it won't be a serial killer, maybe it'll be somebody else. I have no idea, but it definitely will be happening on Netflix because it was announced. You guys could definitely Google it and see. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they mentioned what they're going to do furthermore. But with this, we are finally going to be wrapping up John Wayne Gacy. He was a freaking creep of all creeps. He was the king of, I don't even know, was he the king of creeps? But he was pretty up there. If he wasn't the king of creeps, he was pretty much high up there in the creepified world of Creep Nation. I made it up. It's a new planet. So I'm ready to jump into this, guys. Just so you guys know, as always, this is going to be a full reaction from my entire platform here on the YouTube platform, as well as my other platform, Patreon. So guys, please sign up to one of those platforms and help support the channel today. Just so you guys also know, I just don't want there to be any confusion. The first and the ending normally of each episode of a new show that I do, or a show that I do generally each season, if there's only one season, is that it will always be a full reaction from my entire platform. But the in-betweens generally will always be moving forward for everybody else. But I wanted to always give some type of full reaction for the supporters that are on the lowest tier, but they want to help support the channel, and just some exclusive content that they get. So just so you guys know, because some people who are on the first tier, I believe, but we're talking about other episodes that they did not see, and that's why. So if you're going to sign up for the channel, just always know the first and the ending of each episode will be a full reaction, but the middle, the sandwich, if there's a meat in between the sandwich, that you would have to join either the second or third tier to see those full reactions. But thank you all for the support. Anyways, don't ask me what that sound was. I've been listening to Cardi B like for the past 3 days. I'm ready to jump into this because I'm a reactor. I react to things. With that being said, let's jump into the John Wayne Gacy tapes and find out exactly what John Wayne Gacy has got to give.
The curious lined the ropes around John Gacy's home.
My wife's brother's been missing for a couple years. He went to a concert a couple years ago. She wanted to come over here and talk to the police because there's a possibility that, he may show up.
That changed my entire life and a lot of people's lives. People were destroyed, their whole family, the victims' families. People don't see the fallout from a case like that.
I think any parent feels when something this horrifying happens, they need to have some answer. I also think it made him try to figure out his place in the world, which carried over for me.
Rob Peace, father. I picked him up one day and brought him in the office because they had some questions for him. Why him? Why my son? And I had been thinking the same thing. Gacy never laid eyes on Rob Peace until that day. There was no rhyme or reason. That's the kind of stuff that nightmares are made out of. But that's how John Gacy was. I wanted to do anything I could to find Robert Peace.
Investigators today unearthed 6 more bodies at his home in a Chicago suburb.
It's December of 1978. They're still excavating bodies from the house.
Body 27 was the worst thing I've ever had to do in my whole life. Couldn't break him loose from the mud. I started working my hands under his back. But my God, what am I going to do? So I took my fingers and shoved him right up into the rib cage, and we got him loose. I'll never forget that feeling. It was the end of Friday after Christmas.
Monumental job to identify who these people were that were in the crawl space.
Similar to an archaeological dig, where bones are tagged and cataloged. Please ask relatives of missing teenagers to send dental records.
DNA was not used in criminal work until 1986. There were no fingerprints available. Would be through the teeth.
Teeth are fine, good condition. You got a whole set there, right? Yeah.
I think originally the case had a lot of sexual overtones.
To be gay in the 1970s, it was a different world.
What is a homosexual? Is he a mentally sick person who, like any other, should be treated by whatever resources the psychiatric profession has?
Early 70s and late 70s, they didn't have the respect.
Reveals that John Gacy came into contact with authorities more than half a dozen times.
I think the lack of trust between the gay community and the police likely that crimes against young people would be reported.
Jeffrey Rignall was a gay young man, was picked up by Gacy. Gacy had him at the house. He put him in this 2x4, he had holes in it, bent him over, and violated him with a very large sex toy.
Found myself about 5:30 in the morning on the steps right by Lincoln Park.
You see a lot of burns on his face from the chloroform that he put on him. Was treated more like one gay guy on another gay guy, and there wasn't much urgency to it.
Police and other authorities had a hard time understanding that rape can occur between men.
Did give him a brief description of Gacy, but with very little to go on, and they dropped the ball on that. His exit to get off the expressway to get this house was Cumberland Avenue. He rented a car and went out there and parked at that exit of the expressway. Got the license plate number, the address, went back to the police, gave him the information.
So that I woke up in the park instead of underneath his foundation.
One has to wonder whether he could have been caught sooner.
Mike was the first one, I think, that said, tell us where these people are buried.
He said, just give me a piece of paper, I'll show you where they're at.
So he drew a perimeter. He said, well, you know, here, these are graves that I buried. Some people, after Gacy finished the diagram, he handed it back. He told us that somewhere in the spring to early summer of 1978, it was all out of real estate in the crawl space.
We're all racking our brains. What has gone on here? Where is Robert Peace?
Robbie sort of broke the mold. It was something a little different than he had done before that.
Everybody had seen me in the store, everybody knew the pictures in the store.
There's no doubt he was getting sloppy toward the end, but he sure didn't want to be caught.
Well, who's that? You know, like he didn't know who we were talking about. He was very descriptive on what he did with Rob Peace.
I asked if he could talk to me about a job and told him I didn't have time. He said what he would write with me.
Assaulted him.
He's crying. I mean, he just, this is a 15-year-old boy.
Put the rope around his neck. I said, see, it's loose, right? I said, yep. And I took the stick, put it in there, then the phone rang.
And when we got off the phone, Rob Peace was on the floor dead.
I just took him off my bed and carried him up into the attic and got him out of the way so I could go to bed.
Police came to the door to try to get Gacy to come into the police station. He lost control of the car. A trooper came by and they called a tow truck to get him out.
In Des Plaines, 27 bodies have been found under John Gacy's house. Gacy claims more bodies were thrown into the river.
There's still one missing from the river, and that being Robert Peace. And it could be that they're looking in the wrong river.
I think it was right around January 1st. We had a big snowstorm, about 10 inches.
We are living and shivering in what history will call the deep freeze of '79.
And we got another huge snowstorm. We couldn't move.
Robert Peace's body wasn't discovered until April, and it took that long for his body to surface. The body produces gas, internal gas, and the gas is what floats the body to the surface.
I've identified the male white body recovered from the Illinois River this afternoon.
What I remember from Rob's funeral, there was hundreds of people there. It seemed to me at that time all the focus was on the criminal, not the loss of the victim.
Reporters and neighbors became witness to a stark frame covering to a mass grave. Order came, get it down as quickly and neatly as possible.
The idea was we were supposed to return it to its normal state. There's no way. It'd be better just to build him a new house if we had to.
One body was recovered from under the addition. Another body was recovered along the driveway. So it was 29 in total from that location.
Chicago area funeral directors are furnishing caskets and burial services for the unidentified nine.
I'd carry to be the first chair or the chief prosecutor.
We brought in Bob Egan, and we brought in Terry Sullivan.
The Chicago community, along with the entire world, hated me because I was John Gacy's defense lawyer.
Do you believe that Gacy was insane at the time he committed the murders?
Yes, I do.
The coverage in that case was pervasive, and there were cameras and microphones in my face. This was very difficult on my family and my sons, my marriage. To step foot in this country on American soil is protected by that Constitution. I certainly felt anger and frustration to know that here's my client who's been doing nothing but lying.
And I don't know what I told you. Because I don't even know if I killed him. I don't even think I killed any of them.
Bob Mata from the Public Defender's Office. And Bob was a very good trial lawyer, and we worked on the entire case together.
I thought he was cunning, manipulative, a clever liar.
Patently obvious that he's factually guilty, A, and B, he's going to be convicted of factual guilt.
The classic insanity defense would be the John Hinckley defense. He shot President Reagan. He had this neurotic compulsion, which is a mental disease that truly showed that he was insane. The theory of the case, he was mentally ill, and he did not belong in the death penalty, nor in prison. He would kill again. He couldn't control it.
Not at all.
And it was bookmarked to the chapter on insanity defenses. So Gacy was clever.
He was not suffering from the kind of mental illness that will get you as an insanity defense.
He's got to be nuts, right? And I'm like, oh my God, if they're thinking that, what's a jury going to think?
Determine if he had any psychiatric illnesses.
Yeah.
And my usual way was to take a history from the day the person's born.
I was always building, always wanting to do something constructive, rather than sit and listen to the Nutcracker Suite or Beethoven's Fifth.
Gacy was growing up. He questioned his masculinity.
A normal run-of-the-mill kid, so consequently, I guess I didn't have the macho image.
He also believed he had an upside-down heart. He called it a bottle heart.
My dad's attitude was that I was dumb and stupid and I would never amount to anything.
He would do something to help his father with good intentions, but he would always be criticized no matter what he did.
When he was sober, he was, the nicest person you'd want to be around. Dad would drink, and when he drank, he was belligerent, stubborn.
John's dad spent a lot of time in his basement. He would go down there and work and drink and yell.
He even had signs, keep your goddamn hands off this, or keep the fuck out of the basement.
He liked his mother's softness, her genteel attitude, which led him to try her underwear. He was attracted to that.
She made me wear it. And she punished me with it.
His father was giving his mother attention, the sexual attention, and he wasn't getting it.
I doing some of it deliberately or intentionally to draw sympathy, even though I wasn't healthy as a kid. I was still there, and I wanted attention.
Demonstrated that Gacy, he was a neurotic psychopath.
For Illinois today, jury selection begins for a mass murder trial that will actually be conducted in Chicago.
I got out of the Marine Corps and we came back. And then next thing I know, I get jury duty.
Gacy, we were looking for people who were going to be compassionate, of course not be willing to pull the plug.
Would you have difficulty giving the death penalty? I didn't really have an issue with that.
But I'm not scared. I just feel that I'm being cheated again in my life. You a case that we're not even sure I committed. Then it's heavier for me to handle.
I would have the same nightmare every night. Gacy would be standing next to my car with his arms folded, and I had that dream over and over and over again.
But the other night I had a dream which was crazy. This hotel where the jury is had a fire. 5 people died. 5 from 16 leaves only 11, which means it would have been no jury. Am I trying to tell myself that I don't want the end to come?
That's a possibility.
First time I've ever had any dream like that, or anything about the case.
The murder trial of John Gacy did indeed get underway today with opening statements from the prosecution.
The jury sat in stunned silence, barely moving. If there's another as evil among us, God help us all.
Uncle I can't stand.
Really?
He's an egotistical bastard.
Uncle is bisexual. The prosecutor. And I have seen him at the bar down at Illinois and Clark Street. We put the goddamn leather jacket on him, the leather pants on him, and you know who the hell it is exactly. Bisexual off the goddamn gate.
He was afraid I'd trip him up, and he was right to be afraid.
Do I stand up and fight when I think I'm right, or do I just keep my fucking mouth shut all the time?
Gacy stared straight ahead and showed no emotion as parents of the murder victims testified.
Atmosphere created just by their presence, and it overwhelms you at times.
Like to see him, suffer him like he suffered my son.
Certain families were more involved generally, and that you would see them. Others that would have nothing whatsoever to do with the media.
And somebody comes along, snuffs their lives out.
I was walking out of court one day, and Mr. Peast came walking right toward me, and I'm like, oh, I just want to tell you that I hold no malice toward you. We'll always remember that. It was one of the classiest things that's ever happened to me.
I remember being there when Gacy's mom testified. Gacy had been beaten as a child downstairs where his dad would go down and drink. Gets up on the stand and she just looks around and, oh, there's Johnny. Thought that could have been anybody's mother who was up there.
She acted right from the heart. She's a very good witness.
Yeah, tomorrow the doctor day.
That's with all the psychiatric evaluations and all the doctors that have been working with.
Was he insane or was he evil?
Evil.
Gacy is like an onion. You have to peel back layers.
I think he was insane. And I said I did. He went into episodes of insanity when it was with a situation that depicted the relationship he had with his father. His father essentially victimized him in the basement of his own home as he was growing up. All these dead bodies that he put in the basement was like himself been buried by his father.
You figure if he killed them, he was basically killing himself over and over and over again.
The burden falls on the state to prove sanity at the time of the crime. Everything he did was premeditated. Therefore, Gacy was not mentally ill.
Gacy would probably be released from a mental institution if he was found not guilty by reason of insanity. It'd be like letting Speck out on parole or Manson.
Judge told the jury to disregard the remarks made by the witness and the attorney. If you find him not guilty by reason of insanity, that he will go free.
Focus is always on Gacy.
The trial of John Gacy.
John Gacy would face arraignment.
Here every day, I've enjoyed it. I've been in the limelight. I like being out of attraction. If I won the case, I could sit there and laugh for a fucking hour. You stupid son of a bitch. I outsmarted you again.
I try to do with Gacy, I try to convince the jury to find him not guilty by reason of insanity.
I had him put the crawl space opening right in front of the jury box. You show the same mercy that he showed when he took these lives off the face of the earth and I threw them in the crawl space opening.
When he threw those pictures in the crawl space, if it wasn't over before that, it was over then.
We went over to the Jeans, the local watering hole near the courthouse, and we expected to be there for a while.
By the time we got into that room where we were finally going to make some decisions, John Wayne Gacy made his own choices. And so that makes him completely sane, in my point of view.
Gacy was convicted of murdering more people than anyone else in U.S. history.
I did not see emotion. I did not see anything.
What went through your mind when you heard that verdict?
Oh, I was just delighted. Just a relief to all of us that this is the verdict.
And you thought you were going to get away with it, and you didn't. All because of that little piece of paper.
John Wayne Gacy will be back in court later today. So will the jury start considering the penalty for his crimes.
Fearful that the judicial system would have allowed him to get out at any time.
1980.
Convicted of 33 murders and sentenced to die.
The only way there'll ever be a justice and a balancing of the scales of justice in this case is when he dies.
It's devastating for me and Mata. I mean, you wouldn't think it would be, but it was devastating. It was very emotional, and Gacy was like consoling us.
You weren't fighting my case, you were fighting society, the entire state of Illinois.
I think the jury did the right thing finding me guilty, but I don't think they should have given me the death penalty. And he said, well, they didn't hear the whole story. We can sit down. You can tell me anything you want. He started to laugh, and then, of course, I laughed. I said, that's what I thought, asshole. I'll see you at the execution.
Everybody seems to think that I haven't got the right proper affect for it. Well, maybe I don't. If they say I'm guilty, I'm supposed to feel guilty now? I don't. I have no remorse.
The effectiveness of his representation, that he didn't kill all these people.
Complicity in 2 of the murders.
Just 2?
That's all I know about.
Eventually, he got to the point where he said he didn't kill any of them.
It was like reading a book, and you couldn't get to that last chapter because we weren't in charge of finishing the book.
Mass killer who has been in jail for 15 years faces execution next May.
Chicago parade today, the call was death to Gacy. He's going to get what he deserves.
The world thought he was a monster, but he was my client and he was a human being.
Bob Egan and Greg Badeau and I were 3 official state witnesses.
Oh my gosh.
I received a notice that my name was drawn and that I would be a witness to the execution. It was echoing with prisoners' voices saying, goodbye, John, you're okay, John.
Hoping that Gacy would be completely unglued. I wanted him to suffer like all his victims did and all his victims' families did. I mean, come on.
Killed 33 times. You're only going to kill me once. Gacy outsmarted him again.
Told that his last words were, kiss my ass. He took one deep breath and that was the end of it. Closed his eyes and he was gone.
I would think if it was explained the way I want to explain it.
I had no sympathy for him. I had nothing for him.
The relief came simply knowing that there'd be no other children that John Wayne Gacy would kill.
For all we know, there's another person out there doing the same thing right now.
People need to be aware. They need to be a little more careful.
I noticed 8 of Gacy's 33 victims were never identified. Could we use DNA technology to resolve those?
He's dug up the 8 sets of remains and sent them to this lab at the University of North Texas.
Some number 19 is never going to be known by a number anymore.
Bill Bundy just had turned 19 years old, going to a party, and he never was heard from or seen again. Told his mother that he was going to go to Chicago and have some fun. Because the family was always left wondering, is he alive? It allowed us to identify Jimmy Hawkinson as victim number 24. And other families won't have to live in that cruel limbo any longer.
Well, we're human beings who deserve to live and to be respected, and none of them deserve what happened to them.
All of his victims, you've got a mother, a father, and all of those people that are never going to see their son again. Oh, it's affected their life all the way till today.
I think that's why 40 years later, we're still talking about it.
Decades of those moments that we didn't get to have. I've always wanted to be able to say, hey, Mike was here. Probably what I would want for people to know about all these boys. Sorry. Otherwise, they're just a number, another victim. It is a gift to get to know how loved he was.
So the ending was really sad. I actually pulled a muscle in my neck, so like I'm in excruciating pain, and so I'm like laying back, tottering, trying to listen to the show, and as soon as they pulled up the faces of the victims, that's when everything gathered me together. It's one thing to hear about people who got killed, very, very sad, but then to put a face to it, I felt like this show heavily relied on Robert Pierce, but we didn't see the other victims. So because Robert Pierce was the person that it opened up the case for them to figure out about John Wayne Gacy. We've heard about him and maybe like 2 others out of the 33 people that were killed. So at the ending, when they just hit you with all these faces that you didn't see throughout this show, or really you just saw the names of these people sometimes. Even though it had the pictures in the trial, those pictures, it wasn't being like a focus point, and you get to hear the music with the faces, and you take it all in like, oh my God. That's when it hit me. I mean, it hit me out through the whole show. It's really crazy, but that was very emotional at the end. But once again, we wrap this show up. This is really tough to watch, guys. Very tough to watch. I like doing this to understand and like psychology-wise, and I like to get into these type of shows with you guys, but sometimes it just is so emotional. Ooh, the ending really did. The ending of that really did hit me. So, yeah, now we are done with that, and I think I'm just going to go get some water and rest. Yeah, that was really sad at the end. That was really sad. And I did not know that they didn't identify other people, that there's people out there, That's really sad. But anyways, we are done with this show. And then I'm going to take a few days off before I get into the other one on Peacock. And then we'll wrap up those 2 episodes. And then we'll move on to something else that's chaotic. Another tape. Oh, God. You guys are killing me. But yes, but I'm happy that you guys are with me during this learning about everything that's going on, because at the end of the day, they said it so many times, there are people, there could be somebody out there doing exactly what he's doing, and we don't know yet. You know what I mean? This world is a scary, scary world. So this puts me into perspective, like, damn, always be careful, always watch out what's going on, and you guys, we gotta be safe, we gotta be observant, and we gotta know the signs, and these type of things does help us. So, okay, I'm done. So now I'm gonna give you that outro that you're waiting for. With that being said, if you've seen this reaction and realize you are not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Also, please like and share this content because it does wonders for this channel. And I'll see you all next time on Case El Rey.